Welcome back to another episode of Scenic Fights. Fight scenes breakdown. I'm Chad Vázquez.
I'm Logan Lo.
We're looking at the final fight scene of the 2021 Mortal Kombat film, based on the very popular fighting video game, which I love very much, between Sub-Zero, played by Joe Taslim,
And Scorpion, played by Hiroyuki Sanada.
as well as Cole Young, played by Lewis Tan.
I really love the scene myself because there's just so many weapons involved. We have modified Tonfas, of course the Katana, another Japanese weapon. We have kind of like an ice version of the Chinese Gen or Gim. And then finally we have our first flexible weapon, and we can talk about some of the shortcomings and benefits of that as well.
All right, here we go, the famous Scorpion line.
All right, let's hear it.
Get over here.
Not you.
Boom. Oh, sorry. All right.
I wanted Scorpion.
That was my cue.
All right. Scorpion whips out his katana, and then we've got the Gen. You know, it makes sense that the Chinese character, Sub-Zero, is using a Chinese sword, basically. It's a single-handed sword, versus Scorpion, he's using the double-handed katana. So that makes sense. This is good in-character universe stuff. And a little roll action.
Cool, cool.
You know, normally when I fight, I don't spin this much, I have to say. Nice disarm. So that's a classic disarm. We should break that down. Sub-Zero comes in with a #1 attack, and Scorpion passes it, comes in, flips Sub-Zero around, and basically sandwiches Sub-Zero's arm, and then finishes with an elbow attack to the head. Now that Sub-Zero is stunned, Scorpion then immobilizes Sub-Zero's arm, does a disarm, and then ambushes him with his kunai spear. I normally want to disarm against the blunt edge of it. Now, of course, I could disarm against the edge part of it, but if I have the opportunity and there is this much available to me, I could do a disarm here, like that. I prefer disarming from the handle, just as Scorpion did to Sub-Zero, because I find it safer. So that was a great disarming by Scorpion.
Good job, Hanzo.
Good job. Oh, hidden weapon, stabs him.
What a sequence.
Bam.
Boom. That's so cool. Scorpion's so cool.
He grabs it in this reverse grip. Usually with reverse grip, it's only for a moment and then you switch it. You don't keep it in a reverse grip. And I think he's gonna pay for that. And there, see, he pays for it. And
nice.
Dude, there's a blood knife. That's awesome. So here, in this very first scene, we see Sub-Zero open up with a #3 attack. Now, if you remember, we talked about the #3 attack in Raid 2 with Hammer Girl. And that's essentially a right-handed upward slash. So the #1 attack is a very natural movement. It's the #1 attack because it's so natural, basically from the right side slashing downward. The #3 attack is something that's learned, but once you learn it, it's a very good attack because it's still coming from your dominant right side, if you're right-handed, as most of the world is. So Sub-Zero opens up with this right-handed #3 attack and is met by the blade. He immediately comes down and tries to finish again. He's met with Scorpion's reverse grip blade. Now here's the thing, that's not bad defensively, but notice, Chad, can you hold that out and touch me with it? Boom, like he's barely touching me, it's a longer weapon. Whereas here, I don't even need to try. I'm clearly reaching him. So we talked about this in our very first video, the John Wick video. When you have something in a reverse grip, you generally don't want it longer than your palm, and you can see why. It's very unwieldy here. It can be used defensively, but offensively, not quite as much. So why would you have something in a reverse grip? Almost exactly as we saw here. Because of how Scorpion retrieved his weapon, it just happened to end up in a reverse grip. Usually, this is just by chance. You happen to like grab a weapon, happen to have it in reverse grip. You want to defend just long enough to switch it so that it's in an orthodox grip. Because I can adequately defend myself and attack. Whereas when it's in a reverse grip, realistically, you're not launching the best attacks here. And he pays for it later on by having his weapon basically neutralized by Sub-Zero. What Scorpion should have done is as soon as he was able to, so do that same move again, the #3, boom, do the #2, here, fall through, he would immediately come through and switch. So now he's ready with this longer weapon, because the katana is a longer weapon with greater reach. He's now able to be very offensive with it. And we see later on that is indeed what Scorpion does.
This is awesome. So Sub-Zero made his famous ice wall that we also see in the video game.
Cool, throw him right through it. And now we're seeing the kunai spear for the first time as wielded by Scorpion. I'm not a flexible weapons expert, but there are definitely pros and cons to a flexible weapon. And there's a reason why they're not used as often in combat. Right, how often do you see a flexible weapon used?
Yeah, I say very little.
Very little. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the limitations of it as well. Here we have Espada y Daga, that's what we call it in Kali, where you have a longer weapon with the right hand and a shorter weapon with the left hand. I don't often see that in Asian martial arts, and the reason why is the katana is so long that you really can't have a shorter weapon. But the kunai spear is interesting because it can extend to a longer weapon. So here we see some great Espada y Daga concepts utilized by Scorpion. What is Espada y Daga? Basically, it's dealing with a longer weapon and a shorter weapon. Now, why would you want that? Because you're managing all the distances. You're managing the long range distance with the longer weapon and the short range distance with the shorter weapon. You're also able to be lethal with both hands. I will note though that this is actually the first time I've seen a katana used as an Espada y Daga. Scorpion is obviously super powered, so I don't think it matters to him that it's a two-handed or single-handed sword. The cool thing about Scorpion's weapon and his use of essentially the daga is that the daga becomes the longer weapon. It's called a kunai spear. It looks like a dagger, but it can be longer than his katana just by throwing it out and then retracting it. He does his get over here with it. It's a great use of the concept of a long and short weapon where the long weapon becomes a short weapon and the short weapon becomes the long weapon. Fascinating. If I had that power, I think that would be amazing. Scorpion uses his kunai spear, which is essentially like a rope dart. This is a rope dart. Someone armed with a flexible weapon is often disarmed. Scorpion's weapon was made out of metal. Does that make a difference? Not too much. Even if you brought a metal whip, most people would just take that strike, grab the weapon, and then pull it away. With that amount of adrenaline, it is probably not as damaging as you might imagine. Let's contrast a flexible weapon with a rigid weapon. Here, a blade. Note that with a flexible weapon, you need a certain level of velocity for this to be dangerous. Otherwise, it's just a piece of rope. But with an edged weapon, I don't need much velocity at all. In fact, if I just went like that to you, on your face, I'm cutting your face. In terms of lethality, I would generally choose the rigid weapon over a flexible weapon. Again, we're not in the Mortal Kombat universe, so it is different for Scorpion, but still, if I had my druthers, I would generally choose the rigid weapon over the flexible weapon.
All right, Scorpion's wrapping him up, thrown to the cage. Oh, that's awesome. That's a really cool Sub-Zero ice clone. Very annoying, my brother used it on me a lot when we played against each other.
Man, you played a lot of video games.
We did.
More ice weapons. Hey, it's Cole.
Cole Young.
Cole's using the Tonfa. This is a modified Tonfa. In one of them, it's a traditional one, the one he has on his left. But the one on his right, it looks a lot more offensive. It looks like it's sharpened on both ends.
Like a blade, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. He's wearing like kind of an Aquaman type thing going on here, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, see, Sub-Zero's not scared. He's got his...
He's kind of tired though.
A little tired. Lots of spinning action going on.
That's pretty cool.
Bam, threw him against the cage. Froze Scorpion. Now it's just him and Cole. Cole is really going at it with those Tonfas. So this capture that Cole does of Sub-Zero's arm and weapon, it's only possible because he's wearing that Arcana armor.
Okay, yeah.
And it prevents his shoulder from getting cut here. And that allows him to capture the person and then, kind of ratchet up for that punch. Cole is using his weapons properly. He's using it as a boxer, but he's instinctively understanding how he can use it offensively and defensively against Sub-Zero. Here, Sub-Zero's launching a #1 attack. Cole catches it in a sandwich with his two weapons, and because of his Arcana armor, he's not injured here with the bladed part of the weapon. He flips his Tonfa over for a capture. Chad, can you pull out? Right. So with this, I've now captured him. He then cuts down, boom, and plunges the first of several finishing blows into Sub-Zero. Overall, great use of the Tonfa by Cole Young. I mean, really, it's a good capture, and it was a good transition to an attack with the other version of the Tonfa. But to be honest, you can't do this move unless you actually have the Arcana armor, right?
Or unless you have these awesome new Scenic Fights rash guard from xmartial.com.
Check it out.
Then with these, you'll win every single fight.
That's right. It's true. In terms of weapons work, Cole used it much like Chad used a push knife, as we saw in our Born Identity breakdown. you'll note that he basically threw punches with this. And here the lethality of the blunt version of it is still pretty lethal. But with the sharpened portion of it, he actually finished Sub-Zero by shoving this into his heart. It also changes length. From here, I can also have greater reach. Again, that same push knife concept where I can literally punch a person, but I can punch them with this longer weapon. Defensively, they're even more effective. Why? Because you have this longer, hard weapon as the shield portion of it. And this can change from defensive to offensive. You could also use it this way to capture and pull. Chad, you've never used a Tonfa before,
No.
right? Okay, so let's imagine that you had something like that, and you had that in your hand. If you got into a traditional boxing stance, your traditional boxing stance is just like this, and please don't hurt me.
Okay.
But if you threw some punches, just throw, what would your normal combination be?
Let's see here. Boom, boom,
Boom.
boom. Yeah.
Right.
I guess straight here.
Right?
If I do a hook, I feel like I'd want to use the end of this if
Right.
I'm going to do a hook-like movement. So I guess those are my basics.
So I think that's interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cole was a fighter, right? I mean, he was just
Yes,
used to
within the
boxing.
storyline, Cole Young is a MMA fighter.
For the character of Cole, it made sense that they gave him this weapon because he doesn't have a steep learning curve, right? If I give you a sword, you would...
I'd probably cut myself. I'd probably hurt myself. Yeah, that's most of what happened. Yeah. Don't give me a sword.
So I think that for this character, and again, Cole is new. He wasn't in the game, right?
No, and I'm not getting to that. But yes, he wasn't in the game at all. At all.
One thing that I liked about it was because they made this new character, they made it so they gave him a weapon that he could instinctively use. So you as a boxer can instinctively use it. You know, I have no bias against Cole, unlike some people, but I think that it makes sense for this character to use these weapons.
All right, cool. So Cole Young does a fireman's carry. That's a term used in wrestling. In judo, it's also referred to as a kata Guruma. And he did a cool launch and pass to Scorpion.
Oh, he's not having a good day.
Don't see. All right, let me explain. I know it sounded weird. I know. Let me explain that. So in the video game, if you would do an uppercut, this
Right.
guy's face would show up and he would actually make that sound.
Get outta
But
here.
it's also the name of Scorpion's fatality.
Wait, so it sounds like that?
Yeah, exactly. Don't see. Around that pitch, maybe a little higher.
I just learned something new today.
And fatality. Scorpion wins.
Clearly.
And Cole Young. Yeah, Cole Young.
And Cole.
He did his thing, sure.
Sure.
Towards the end of the battle now, we have Sub-Zero versus off against Cole Young and Scorpion. And Cole Young is opening for a very common, well-known takedown, referred to as the fireman's carry. In judo, a kata Guruma. Cole Young, with his left arm, connects to Sub-Zero's right arm. And it seems like possibly he was using his tool to connect towards his arm here. With a straight grappling context without weapons, you'll be using your palm, like so. And the other hand would be connected to the neck here. And so you'd be using a pulling mechanism to create a setup, an opening. And from here, there'll be a level change, which Cole Young did to a certain degree, and a shot entry to the scoop grip here. And then immediately, with momentum, there's a lift action, like so. Now, Cole Young, he just...
Chad,
Yep.
can I come down?
1 second. So Cole Young, he just tosses Sub-Zero right in the air, and with the help of Scorpion, slams him like this. But we just can't do that for now because of safety reasons. The move is totally legitimate. There is a danger. If you can recall in our Ava episode, we went over the crucifix position.
Oh yeah, you almost broke my arm there.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
fun times.
You know what I mean?
What we do for you guys. You almost broke my arm.
Exactly. And it's why you guys really have to like, subscribe, and comment below.
Seriously,
to
man.
kind of keep putting Logan in danger, because some of you like that. I know you do. But also just to give you better content there.
True.
But that position is a risk when doing this technique. And it's a bit of a debate because the move does work, but some coaches don't like it because of that reason. Overall, valid move and a pretty cool combo that Cole Young did with Scorpion.
Resulting in...
Toasty! The famous Toasty fatality by Scorpion. One of my personal favorites. And really cool how they did it within the movie.
I actually enjoyed the scene. The really cool parts of it were the wide variety of weapons. You have flexible weapons, you have the introduction of the Tonfa, you have the Katana, you have the ice sword. I also like the fact that Sub-Zero used his single-handed sword the way a Chinese fighter would, because he's Chinese, right? He's a Lin Kuei. Also, the Cole character was cool as well, because, you know, he comes out of nowhere. Apparently, he's not part of the original game. But I like that they gave him weapons that suited him, because he basically used his weapons like a boxer would use the weapons for. In terms of what I didn't like, I didn't really like how Scorpion used his katana because he used it in a way that was suboptimal. And again, he's a trained fighter. He wouldn't have kept it in the reverse grip for so long. It should have only been a momentary thing and switched right away. With all of this said, I give it a solid B. It was a good fight scene. I felt it could have been a little bit better, but overall, a great updating of the Mortal Kombat genre.